This is my first time recording in my room, so I'm just trying to figure it out. But excuse the laundry. I did laundry yesterday. They had to like air dry. But yeah, this is my room, and it's gonna be my second video uploading, kind of like just vlog style, just talking. But I'm excited, and I really enjoyed the way the last one came together. But I want to do more of like a long format where it's just like one solid video because I had to edit the last one. Y'all, I took 17 minutes worth of footage and condensed it down to 3 minutes, which was like, it took time, and it was just like, I feel like it wasn't as organic as it could have been had it just been like one video. So bear with me. And yeah, really what I want to talk about today is like just sobriety. So I used to smoke weed a lot, and well, tomorrow's gonna be 35 days sober, so happy for that. 5 weeks. And the reason I want to make this video is because I had made an Instagram post on my story maybe 14 days into being sober. And I kind of had I got some good feedback, and then I had a couple people or one person, and throughout time, just people like, because I've stopped smoking before, but then I would like pick it back up. I would stop, I'd pick it back up. And I think the biggest difference right now is that I have God, and I realize that like I can't do this on my own, right? And that's gonna be the core of my message and just this video is you can't do it on your own. I feel like me personally, and that's another thing, I can really only talk about my experience, like some people might just be able to smoke at night or smoke on the weekends or things like that and structure it out to where they can manage it, but that was not me, okay? Like I have kind of like an addictive personality. I'm kind of extreme. It's kind of like if I can't dabble in it, because if I dip my toes in, like I'm jumping in the water. So I can just really stay away. That's like the best thing I can do for me. And yeah, personally, I feel like it got to the point where it was like I I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop, if I'm being honest. And people say that all the time too. It's like, oh, I could stop if I wanted, right? But it's like, if I'm being honest with myself, I didn't want to stop. And it got to the point where I feel like I couldn't. Not because it was just so great. I was actually like struggling, especially the last couple months of 2024. Just like, you have all these holidays, and my birthday's in November. You have all these holidays, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, like it's all this love and cheer in the air. And I feel like I just kept burying myself deeper and deeper with weed. And things were starting to like get dark. My mental was like not in a good spot. And it got to the point where on New Year's I had a very serious conversation with my mom, and we sat down and she asked me how I was doing, and I was very open with her, and I told her, and I'll share this just because I feel like it's important for me to share like the weight of how it felt, and I just told her, I was like, man, I just feel so empty, like I feel void, and I really just want to kill myself, honestly, like, and I think that may come as a shock to some people because people don't look at me and see this like depressed or like suicidal person. They see all the good, which is typically what people see. But it was getting to the point where I was like, I just didn't want to be here. I didn't want anything to do with this, no matter how good things were on the outside, or, it's not even that things were that bad, but I was just burying myself in so much worthlessness and like depression that it started just getting very dark. Like I was making it worse than it was in my head. And here's the thing, I really don't think I ever could commit suicide. I think that in itself is it's just scary, man, and like the pain that it would cause my loved ones is just something I couldn't bear to think about them experiencing. And so, but yeah, I had a very honest conversation with my mom. I told her, I was like, this is how I feel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My mom's very gracious, very compassionate, very loving. Like You know, she embraced me. She always has. And I basically made the decision that night, like, I can't keep living like this. And so I think it was like maybe 2 days later, I just threw away like whatever weed I had. And I was like, that took a lot. It took a lot just to toss it out. And in my head, I was like, I wasn't even sure if I was gonna like stick with it. You know, it's kind of like a one-time decision where I was like, I'm throwing this out, like I can't do this, knowing like, hey, I might hit up the plug tomorrow. Real talk, right? But I was like, I gotta take this step, this first step at least. And I feel like that was very pivotal, you know. And I also knew that I couldn't do it on my own. That's where I feel like God has played the biggest role in that aspect. Is like, we try to accomplish a lot of things in our life through willpower, through like our strength, our intelligence, our connections, our financial uh, position, whatever it is. And it doesn't work that way. Like, I had to surrender. I literally had to surrender and be like, God, I can't. I can't, but you can. And, you know, I feel like that's the way it's supposed to be, because that is my dependence on Him. That is my dependence on God. And God is our Father, you know? So it only makes sense to depend on our Father in that way. Like, we can't do things on our own. We need God. And so, yeah, I knew when I put the weed down that it was going to be tough, but I also knew with time that the harder part was going to be staying sober. And so going on 35 days tomorrow, 34 days today sober, and like I feel good. It's not something that really crosses my mind. But I also want to make this video to encourage somebody, because especially in today's day and age, I think weed is something people struggle a lot with. You know, I've been there, like feeling helpless, feeling like, man, I can't let this go. I don't want to let it go. Even if it's like hurting me, it's poisoning me in my mind and my soul, but like, I don't want to let it go, because like, I just like the rush of it. I like the ecstasy in my brain, like the high, you know? But it is very unfulfilling. It is very, it just puts you on a hamster wheel. You feel like you're gonna get some sort of, I don't know, reward, or that you'll get a point where it's like, okay, I'm high enough to where like, I don't know, but whatever it is just a vicious cycle, right? And obviously there's other cycles and vices as far as alcohol and, you know, just pleasure in itself. But I wanted to talk about weed in particular because that's been a big struggle for me for a very long time. And the only reason I was able to let it go is because of God, and surrendering myself and being like, God, I can't do this. If anything, I don't want to do this, but you're the only way. And yeah, so I want to encourage somebody that is out there, you know, if you're struggling with this, you're not going to be able to do it on your own. You know, these are things that have to be verbalized. Like, if you have a problem, if you're struggling with something, verbalize it to somebody that you trust, somebody that, you know, you can confide in, that feels safe for you. Verbalize it, you know what I'm saying? Have that accountability, and then pray, man. Like, surrender to God. Surrender that thing to God. God says, come as you are. That doesn't mean you have to be sober. You know what I mean? If anything, look, there were times I would smoke on the way to church, okay? Like, I would be getting high in the car, driving to church, and then sit in church like this. Okay? Like, in my head, I was like, if I'm going to church, and I was younger at the time, you know, my mom would force me, and I'm Hispanic, so y'all know how that goes. She would force me to go, and I was like, well, if I'm going, like, I'm going separate, and I wouldn't tell her this, but I would just smoke on the way there. Feeling guilty. Very, very guilty. But, you know, I feel like it's just my testimony is to show you that, like, it doesn't matter where you are. God is going to accept you, and the right people will too. Like, if they love you, they're really going to be there for you. You know, they're not going to condemn you. They're not going to push you away. They're not going to, you know, like turn their back on you. They're going to embrace you. They're going to love you. How can I help you? right? That's going to be their intention. And that's God's intention. He's always there for you. So yeah, man, like, I know what it's like to feel like you can't let it go, that you don't want to let it go, that, you know, to feel helpless and enslaved to it. But 34 days sober today, man, I just want to let somebody know that it's possible, okay? And this is just my experience and my journey with that whole thing, you know? So it started off as, you know, something that was fun for me, something that was casual, something to do with the guys, something that it was, you know, it was cool. And I never smoked until my senior year. I think it was the summer before senior year. And then after that, man, I liked it. You know, I never really had an issue with like alcohol. I never really struggled with that. I didn't even really like it ever. You know, there were times where like I would have a drink or a couple of drinks, but like weed was the thing that really got me, you know? And like, I just know personally, like, the history of my bloodline and my family and the generations, and I believe in generational curses. I believe in these things that like carry on, and I've also seen the result of what happens like if you don't let these things go, you know. And I've heard about those things too. I don't want that for myself, and I was like, man, I can't end up like that. I'm not gonna end up like that, you know. So I had to make a decision to let that go, and I couldn't do it on my own. So the whole point of this video is just that, man, like, trust God. There's no way that I would have been able to be sober on my own. I've tried it before, tried it plenty. I can't even say that I'll never smoke again, right? Like, I'm just taking it a day at a time. A day at a time, a day at a time, a day at a time, and continuing to surrender to God and put Him first above my pleasure, my needs. Like, that's really all there is to do, man. Like, we're not perfect. I'm a human, you know? So I understand that part of it as well, but God's grace is enough to cover all that and more. So I just want to encourage somebody, you know, take that first step. As imperfect as it may come out, take that first step. Let God do the rest, okay? So that's it for this video.